Thank you for attending this online tutorial on filing mobile broadband availability data as part of the FCC's new Broadband Data Collection, or BDC. I'm Jean CLUTTER, Chair of the Broadband Data Task Force at the FCC. This webinar is the second of two tutorials that we hope will help mobile broadband providers prepare their mobile broadband availability data submissions for filing in the BDC. It's hard to overstate the importance of submitting accurate and timely broadband availability data, and we are therefore pleased that you're taking the time to view this webinar as part of your planning. Taking steps now to prepare your data and systems to be ready to file your June 30th data is important. As we said in the public notice announcing the June 30th opening of the filing window, we strongly encourage filers to file their data early in the filing window to provide time before September 1st to resolve any issues uncovered by the BDC system's validation checks. This online tutorial and its companion are part of a number of technical assistance materials that the FCC is making available to broadband service providers. You can find additional information and resources on the BDC by visiting our website at www.fcc.gov/broadbanddata. So rather than take up any more of your time, I'll turn it over now to Will Holloway, an attorney advisor in the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, to get us started. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jean. In our first video, we went over which mobile technologies require availability reporting and the standard modeling parameters adopted for each technology and across technologies, such as download and upload speeds, cell edge probability, and cell loading factor. We also discussed the requirements to model each technology for both outdoor stationary and in-vehicle mobile coverage. And we also discussed information about submitting signal strength heat maps and the data specifications for mobile broadband and voice availability data. In this companion video, we provide detailed information about the additional data that mobile filers are required to submit in support of their broadband availability data, including mobile propagation model details, link budget parameters, and CLUTTER data. Mobile broadband providers are required to submit supporting data about how they generated their coverage maps, including propagation model details and link budget information. During this tutorial, we will discuss and provide additional information for each of the following categories of mobile broadband supporting data. Number one, mobile propagation modeling information, which includes mobile propagation model details and the mobile propagation model conditions explanation. 2, mobile link budget parameters. 3, mobile CLUTTER category data. 4, mobile propagation model and link budget association. 5, mobile link budget parameter rationale. 6, mobile link budget description. And 7, verified mobile broadband availability data information. First, mobile broadband providers are required to submit a file containing information on the propagation modeling and planning tools used to generate their mobile broadband coverage maps. The following data submissions required are described in the table in Section 9 of the Broadband Data Collection Data Specifications for Biannual Submission of Subscription, Availability, and Supporting Data, also referred to as the data specifications. This section includes two parts. First, providers must submit detailed information about their mobile propagation model. This file contains records of each propagation model used to model mobile broadband coverage. The file must be uploaded in comma-separated value or CSV format and must match the specifications found in Section 9.1.1 on the data specifications. All of the values listed in the table are required unless otherwise indicated. The image at the bottom of the slide displays an example of a mobile propagation model details CSV file. A few notes on some of the fields included in the mobile propagation model details. The model ID is a unique identifier assigned by the filer for the propagation model used to generate the coverage data. The model resolution is the resolution of the model used to generate the coverage data in meters. The value may be approximate for models measured in arc seconds, but the value must be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100. Similarly, terrain resolution and CLUTTER data resolution are measured in meters. And while the values may be approximate for datasets measured in arc seconds, they must be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100. The model calibration process is a text field in which the filer must provide a brief narrative summary of the process used to calibrate the model. The second part of the mobile propagation model information requires filers to submit a mobile propagation model conditions explanation. If a filer uses more than one propagation model to generate mobile wireless broadband coverage, it must provide a description of the circumstances under which each model is deployed and why. For example, if a mobile provider submits multiple models at different resolutions, like 30-meter resolution for rural areas, 10-meter resolution for suburban and urban areas, and 3-meter resolution for dense urban areas, the provider must submit each model in the mobile propagation model details CSV file. And it would also have to explain in its mobile propagation model conditions explanation why it used each model for each resolution. This description must be entered in a web form in the BDC system. Filers that use only one propagation model do not need to enter this form. Next, mobile availability filers are required to submit a file containing information on the parameters and values included in the link budgets used to generate the coverage maps for each technology and at the defined speeds. This file contains records of each mobile link budget, including separate records for each downlink link budget and each uplink link budget. The file must include fields listed in the table found in section 9.2 of the data specifications. All of the values listed in the table are required unless otherwise indicated. If a service provider uses different link budget parameters for different technologies or spectrum bands, this file must contain records for each set of distinct downlink and uplink link budget parameters. The image at the bottom of the slide displays an example of a mobile link budget parameters CSV file, read from left to right descending. While the previous slide noted that the file containing link budget parameters and values must include all of the fields listed in section 9.2 of the data specifications, this slide highlights the following required fields that may likely warrant additional clarification. These include a unique identifier assigned by the filer used to identify every individual link budget, an appropriate technology code, which are listed in the chart in section 9.2 of the data specifications, based on whether the link budget is for 3G, 4G LTE, or 5G in our service, and indicates the technology standard used by the channel and carrier described in the record. The morphology code that describes the area used in the link budget, i.e. urban, suburban, or rural. The target minimum download and upload speed, average cell loading factor for both the owned cell and neighboring cells, and the cell edge probability, i.e. the desired probability of receiving the signal at or above the receiver sensitivity at the cell coverage boundary of each link budget. We also make special note of the following link budget fields. Losses due to a receiver being located inside of a vehicle should be accounted for in the penetration margins field, and values for gains and losses such as fade margin, head and body loss, interference margin, penetration margin, and others must have a corresponding explanation or rationale in the mobile link budget rationale file, as explained in greater detail in slide 10. To submit mobile clutter category data, filers should upload a file containing a list of clutter categories used, a name or short description of each clutter category, and a propagation loss value due to clutter for each category used in the propagation modeling that generated the mobile broadband coverage areas. The file must be uploaded in CSV format and must match the specifications in the following table found on section 9.3 of the data specifications. All of the values listed in the table are required unless otherwise indicated. The image at the bottom of this slide displays an example of a mobile clutter category data CSV file. To the extent a constant signal loss is attributable to a given clutter category, the value for a variable signal loss may be null, and vice versa, i.e., if a variable signal loss value is attributable to a given clutter category, then the value for constant signal loss may be null. Each clutter category must include a model ID that corresponds to the model ID value listed in the mobile propagation model detail file. To submit mobile propagation model and link budget association, providers should upload a file containing a list of the propagation model IDs associated with particular link budgets and the link budget IDs associated with particular propagation models. Note that there can be a many-to-many relationship between link budgets and propagation models. The file must be uploaded in CSV format and match the specifications. The information that must be submitted can be found in the table of section 9.4 of the data specifications. The following image displays an example of a mobile propagation model and link budget association CSV file. To submit the mobile link budget parameters rationale, filers should submit a file that provides an explanation and rationale for the values reported in the mobile link budget parameters table found in section 9.2 of the data specifications for each link budget that was used to generate the mobile broadband coverage areas. Unless the reported link budget parameter is null, filers must include, for each separate link budget, an explanation and rationale for the reported value for the required link budget parameters listed on the right hand of the slide. The file must be uploaded in CSV format and match the specifications in the table on section 9.5 of the data specifications. The image on the right-hand side of the slide displays an example of a mobile link budget parameters rationale CSV file. Please note that we expect a more detailed rationale than typical equipment configuration. For example, the rationale for fade margin could be the value of 10.3 decibel corresponds to 90% cell edge coverage probability with 8 decibel fade margin standard deviation. 8 decibel fade margin standard deviation is reasonable based on previous studies. To submit the mobile link budget description, filers must complete a web form that contains a narrative describing how the link budgets identified in the mobile link budget parameters file were created. Filers must submit a description for each link budget that was used to generate the mobile broadband coverage areas. As a reminder, link budget data will be publicly available unless a provider views such information as commercially sensitive and submits a request for confidential treatment. To submit a request for confidential treatment, a provider should follow the steps in the slide below. The BDC offers an opportunity for governmental entities and third parties to submit verified mobile broadband availability data information. If they choose to do so, it must meet the same requirements as the availability data submitted by providers. It must also include the following information on the entities and methodologies employed to collect, organize, and verify the broadband availability data. First, it must include the identity of the entity that gathered and/or analyzed broadband availability data. And second, it must include the methodologies used in collecting, organizing, and verifying the broadband availability data submitted. Only governmental and third-party entities submitting verified broadband availability data must submit this information. It is not required of service providers, including governmental entities and third parties, who are a provider and are submitting availability data for the locations where they provide broadband service. The information must be submitted via web form in the BDC system. If filers use different entities or methodologies to generate data for different providers or technologies, they should indicate that in the form. Before we conclude, a quick note on a request for confidential treatment of BDC data. Under the Commission's second report and order in this proceeding, mobile availability data will be made publicly available subject to individual requests for confidential treatment. In the event a mobile provider wants to request certain parts of its mobile availability data should be maintained as confidential, it must check appropriate boxes in the BDC system, file a request for confidentiality pursuant to 47 CFR section 0.459 in ECFS under WC docket number 19-195, and attach a courtesy copy of the PDF filing in which it formally requests confidentiality in the BDC system. FCC staff will not publicly release the data until a decision is made on the request for confidentiality. If their confidentiality request is approved, the data will remain confidential in the BDC system.
Thanks, Will. This concludes our introduction to mobile availability filing. Thank you again for taking time to watch this tutorial and for your effort to be ready to submit mobile broadband availability data as of June 30th. If you have not already done so, we urge you to watch our companion online tutorial for an overview of the filing requirements for submitting mobile broadband availability data. And please remember to periodically check our website at www.fcc.gov/broadbanddata for links to commission orders, notices, tutorials, FAQs, and other resources. Questions about the BDC filing requirements may be submitted to the FCC by using the Submit a Request button in the Help Center from the link on that webpage. Thank you again for your effort to prepare for the upcoming filing.